Coming up on today's show, we are breaking down some of the biggest takeaways from Ryan Grubb, Kane Wommack, and Kalen DeBoer's press conference earlier here on Monday morning. One of the more positive things that Kalen DeBoer gave us an update on was running back Jam Miller and where he sits on his injury status. The positive thing, there's an opportunity that he might get a chance to come back for next week's game against Wisconsin. This is what Kalen DeBoer said about Jam Miller's injury. He said, we're optimistic that there could be a chance that he's out there versus Wisconsin. I really don't think that we'll know until later in the week. You saw him in pregame. He was out there doing some things aggressively, trying to continue to push forward. So that is a very, very positive thing. One of the best things that we heard from that press conference today. All right, another thing that we heard from the press conference was Michael Carroll, 100% in a battle at that right tackle position, according to Ryan Grubb. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I don't necessarily think that it is 100% a battle there at that right tackle spot, but I think mainly what they're doing is, they're putting more guys out there. They're rotating some guys to breed competition. If Wilkin Formby knows that there is a very talented, former five-star freshman right behind him pushing for some playing time, I think it might kind of whip him into shape a little bit here. Against ULM, Wilkin Formby played 42 snaps in that game, and Michael Carroll played 30 snaps against Louisiana Monroe. I thought both guys played really well. I think Wilkin Formby didn't necessarily play the best against Florida State, but look, having a guy like Michael Carroll, former five-star, he was number 17 overall, they kind of think he's going to end up playing more at that guard position in the future. But as of right now, you don't have as much tackle depth. And, he's pushing for that spot behind Wilkin Formby right there. Like I said, against Florida State, he did not have the best game out there. You can take PFF grades with a grain of salt if you want. But I think just, kind of being in the range is kind of what you need to look towards when it comes to these PFF grades. He actually graded out as the lowest starter on offense against Louisiana Monroe, and he was the second lowest grade as an offensive starter behind Ryan Williams against Florida State as well. So I don't necessarily think it's 100% a position battle like Ryan Grubb is saying, but I do think that, there is a chance that maybe if he continues to have some struggles, Michael Carroll is right behind him, and he's a very, very talented kid. This was the exact quote from Ryan Grubb on Michael Carroll. He said, 100%, I see that as a competition. All of these guys are competing for spots, and I thought Michael did a really great job out there. There are some things that he certainly needs to clean up. The thing that I like most about Michael is that he does compete. What you saw on the field in the game is how Michael practices too. He is super competitive. He's a physical kid that did a really nice job for the first time being out there. All right, if you were Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, I want to hear from you guys down at the pinned comment of today's video, because I know a lot of you guys aren't real fans of Wilkin Formby, but I want to hear from you guys. Let me know. Pick a right tackle for me. Type WF for Wilkin Formby or type MC for Michael Carroll. Let me know what you guys think down at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, the next press conference takeaway from me was expect to see more Lotzeir Brooks playing time out there. He got an opportunity to play against Louisiana Monroe, and, he did a pretty solid job. And I think, just having another guy with a lot of speed out there in Lotzeir Brooks, man, he has an opportunity to get a lot of playing time this year. I think he kind of plays that same role as a Rico Scott, but at the end of the day, he did a really, really good job against Louisiana Monroe when he got his opportunities there. He was targeted 5 times in the game, had 4 receptions for 58 yards, 14.5 yards per catch on that one. So we'll continue to talk about Lotzeir Brooks and kind of the snap shares, because they, discussed, the possibility of, putting Ryan Williams back out to the outside and have Lotzeir Brooks more be that slot guy. But we'll talk about that more here in just a second. But today's show is brought to you guys by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. I personally use Prize Picks for so many different types of sporting events, whether it's professional football, baseball, basketball, college sports, MMA, boxing, and so much more. Prize Picks is a ton of fun, and if you guys know ball, you can win real money all season long on Prize Picks. This is what we got cooked up here for Monday Night Football. We went with the power play here. Justin Jefferson, pretty much an anytime touchdown there, more than a half touchdown that could be rushing or receiving. Caleb Williams going with the less than on passing yards for him at 218.5. And then Will Riker, our guy, the guy that got robbed of being the best kicker in the country, going with a more than on him, 1.5 field goals made on that. We went with the power play on this, but you guys can also do the flex play because Prize Picks actually invented the flex play, which means you can cash in if your lineup is not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money today. So download the Prize Picks app today and use promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link is down at the pinned comment of today's show. It's also going to be down in the description of today's show as well. It's Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, looking at the snap share here for the Alabama wide receivers against ULM. Obviously, you got your starters there, Isaiah Horton, Jeremy Bernard, Rico Scott got the majority there. But then really that fourth wide receiver off the bench for Alabama was Lotzeir Brooks. And then behind him, you had Jalen Hale, Cole Adams, and then Jalen Mbakwe and Derek Meadows got mixed in at the end there as well. But I do think that Lotzeir Brooks might be in for a breakout season here as a freshman. You had one of the members there of the Alabama media, Chase Goodbread, kind of asked about the emergence of Lotzeir Brooks and what that could mean about the different alignments at that wide receiver spot. And, they wanted to play Ryan Williams more in that slot, kind of, keep him, have him outside and inside as well. They wanted to play him in both spots because, adding Isaiah Horton to the fold as well, he's kind of more of that outside, bigger body guy that they like. I don't necessarily think that Ryan Williams or Isaiah Horton actually looked very good at all during the Florida State game. Ryan Williams, when he was in that slot going across the middle a couple of times, it kind of seemed like he was hearing footsteps coming, which might have been kind of the reasoning there for the 3 drops. Obviously, going across the middle there in that slot spot was when he got hit and suffered that concussion. And I just think if Lotzeir Brooks can become a consistent part of this offense, even if he is a decoy at times, just putting him in pre-snap motion, giving the defense a little bit of eye candy to look at, it's going to open up this offense a whole lot more. And I think it's just going to be another added element, whether it's Lotzeir Brooks or Rico Scott, being that speed guy for Alabama out there. Man, this kid does have a really, really bright future with the Crimson Tide. Again, you see his stat line right there for that game. I am very, very excited about the future of Lotzeir Brooks. All right, make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. We have 4 channels here at Chat Sports that are committed to college football. Alabama, Ohio State, new channel here, Tennessee Football Talk, and then the Michigan Football Report as well. Here in the month of September, we are number 2 in the amount of subs. The other 2 channels there, Tennessee and Michigan, they don't go live for games, but the Ohio State Football Report does, and they are beating us right now in our September sub battle. So help me out. I want to catch them. I think we should be able to get at least 50 new subs on today's videos. Like I said, we are live for every single Alabama football game. We'll also have videos for you guys 5-6 times a week as well. So don't miss out. Hit that sub button for me right now. All right, one of my favorite parts about this press conference was listening to Kane Wommack. He still wasn't pleased about Alabama's execution out there on Saturday. I think my favorite line from him was when he said, "We need to stay uncomfortable as a defense, and that is his job to make sure that they continue to do that." And, I'm not at all comparing Kane Wommack to Nick Saban, but remember back Nick Saban when he would do his press conferences, he would always come in and, he would kind of treat those press conferences and, preach kind of that same message to the media that he was preaching to the team throughout the week. And I kind of got that same feel from Kane Wommack today. You just blew a team out 73-0. You forced 3 turnovers, and it still wasn't good enough. I absolutely love that mentality from this Alabama defensive coordinator. You look at what their defense did in this game. They had 11 pressures in this game, but they had no sacks from it. Against Florida State, they had 10 pressures, and they only had 1 sack in that game. And that's been a talking point throughout the entire offseason is Alabama's ability or inability to get to the quarterback. And, I think in that Florida State game, the quarterback did a really good job, Tommy Castellanos, of getting the ball out really quickly. And if it wasn't there, he just ended up taking off. But they have got to find a way to end up sacking the quarterback, especially when you're going against some of these better quarterbacks in the SEC, like Lenora Sellers, like Garrett Nussmeier. Diego Pavia cooked you last year. Joey Aguilar looks pretty good at Tennessee. John Mateer at Oklahoma is looking really nice. He's a Heisman candidate right now. Jackson Arnold, he beat you at Oklahoma last year. Now he's at Auburn. They're running the same pretty much type of offense, and he's probably got better weapons now at Auburn. So, you're going to go up against a lot of really good quarterbacks in the SEC, and if you cannot consistently get pressure on them, they are going to make your life a living hell when you face them down the line. Another line here I think that we heard a lot from Nick Saban as well. Complacency creates a blatant disregard for doing what's right. You heard all 3 coaches today during their press conference and, some of the players too after the game just talking about how they stepped up the energy in practice this week. And I think that's a good thing, but it can't only be when you're about to play a mediocre team. It cannot only be after a loss. It has to be every single week. You have to be consistent in that regard. And yes, it is nice to hear that they're going out there and they're practicing hard, but I want to see what this team actually looks like when they actually face some adversity down the road, because against Florida State, when they faced adversity, they kind of folded. Back last year when they were losing some of those games, and they faced adversity in those games, they ended up folding. Are you going to fold again, or are you going to get back up and keep throwing punches? This is what Ryan Grubb said about, Ty Simpson and kind of his approach to preparation for this game coming up against ULM last week. He said, I thought maybe I wasn't hard enough on Ty Simpson before the Florida State game. I didn't harden him enough for that moment, and I didn't want to make that same mistake again. Hopefully they can keep that same exact mentality because, man, your next, really 10 out of your next 9 games are, it's going to be a tough road, man. You can feel whatever way you want to feel about Wisconsin, but they're going to come into Tuscaloosa and they're going to try to whip your ass. Then you have a bye week. Then you have to go to Georgia, number 6 Georgia, by the way. Then you have Vanderbilt. That's supposed to be a get-back game for you. After they beat you last year, they're still looking pretty decent this year. Then you have number 25 Missouri. You have to go to Missouri. That kind of environment can, be up and down. We'll see. By the way, also that Wisconsin game, an 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff. So you got to be able to get up early and get ready for that game. Tennessee, you got to get your get back against them too. Another ranked team coming into town. And then you have to go to number 11 South Carolina. That's going to be their homecoming game. They are going to be absolutely fired up for that ball game. And like I said, against Lenora Sellers. And then you're going, and you have the bye week before LSU against number 3 LSU in Garrett Nussmeier. He's one of these quarterbacks that a lot of people are really, really high on. And, honestly, he's looking to take an extra step this season as well. And then Oklahoma with John Mateer, a Heisman candidate quarterback right now. This is a gauntlet of a stretch of games for Alabama, and I really hope that they just continue to have that same kind of hard-nosed mentality, not just when you're going up against crap teams, but when you're going up against some of these really, really good teams in the SEC as well.